She left an abusive marriage with 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. One would think life would be better for her afterwards, but what she ran into was worse. All because of something she didn't do after leaving her marriage. What started as a search for help became a hunger for answers, and that hunger became madness. Even her last daughter, barely 8 years old, saw things no child should ever witness. And by the time Gloria realized what was happening, her daughter had already become a mirror of her brokenness. If you're just tuning into this channel, please subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and tell us where you're watching from in the comments. Gloria had only just turned 22 when she married Chuka. He was tall, smooth-talking, and good with scripture. He could quote psalms and proverbs like a pastor, but his feasts, those came later. At first, it was good. He brought her boiled groundnuts wrapped in old newspaper. He rubbed her feet when she was pregnant with Ada, their first daughter. He called her my queen, especially after church on Sundays when neighbors were watching. But something changed after their second child, Michael, was born. The money wasn't flowing the way it used to. Chuka lost his job at the printer's shop. He started drinking small, then drinking big. One night, he came home and said, "Did I beg you to give me children?" That was the night she saw a side of him she had never seen before. First slap, then silence, then gaslight, then worse, the apologies. You know those kinds of apologies that come with flowers, but behind the flowers is a feast waiting. Gloria endured it. For the children, because church said a wise woman builds her home. Because her own mother said no man is perfect. Because society said at least you have a husband. So she stayed, even when she had to wear makeup to cover bruises. And then came miracle. The 3rd child, the last born, a girl born into chaos. Chuka didn't touch the child for 3 days, said she looked too much like Gloria, said you think you are better than me now that you have 3. By then, Gloria had learned how to cry without sound. She cried in the kitchen, cried in the bathroom with her hand over her mouth, cried while frying plantain for a man who said she was nothing. But the final straw was a Sunday morning. She was bathing Miracle, who was barely 4 months old. Chuka wanted food. She said, "Give me 5 minutes." He dragged the pot off the fire and flung it across the room. Boiling water splashed on Michael's foot. That was the day Gloria snapped. That night, when the house was quiet and Chuka had passed out drunk, she packed everything she could fit into 2 Ghana must-go bags. Clothes, baby diapers, Ada's school uniform, a Bible, and a photo from when they were all still smiling. She took the children and walked out. No destination, no money, no plan, just survival. She landed in a dusty part of town called Oke-Olu. One room face me, I face you. The walls had cracks. The roof leaked. The landlord was half blind and always angry. But nobody beat her there. Nobody called her useless. And that was enough. Years passed in Oke-Olu. Gloria got a job sweeping classrooms at a local primary school. 9,000 naira a month. She cleaned toilets in the morning, fried akara for the children after school, washed people's clothes on Saturdays. She was always tired, always one school fee behind, but she had her peace. Or so she thought, because peace is not just the absence of pain. Sometimes peace is a mirror, and when she looked in the mirror, all she saw was struggle. No family, no help, no future. 3 children, 1 broken mother. and no one to carry the load. That was when she started looking for answers. Not from inside herself, not from books, not from skills, but from people. People who said they had power. People who said they could see. And that was the beginning of the real storm. Gloria never planned to become the kind of woman who chased prophets. She had always thought those women were weak, desperate, gullible. But desperation is a strange thing. It doesn't announce itself with drums. It creeps in quietly, through unpaid bills, through your child's torn sandals, through the shame of begging your landlord for just one more week. The day it started was the day Ada fainted in school. There had been no breakfast. There hadn't been dinner the night before either. Michael said she just stood up, tried to answer a question, then collapsed. The school called her. They said they would take the matter to child services if it happened again. That night, Gloria sat alone on the bare floor. She had just given Miracle Gary without sugar. Michael was coughing again. The room was hot. Mosquitoes were chewing their legs like suya. And her chest was heavy like someone packed a car on it. She looked up at the ceiling and whispered, "God, where are you?" No answer. But the next day, the answer came from a woman in the market. A woman who wore 7 bangles on one hand and called herself Mama Fire. She looked at Gloria once and said, "Your problem is spiritual." Gloria paused. Mama Fire leaned closer. "Your ex-husband, he tied your destiny in a black pot. That's why you are suffering." Gloria didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but she was tired, and sometimes tired people listen to things they would normally ignore. She followed the woman to a small gathering behind a container shop. They clapped. They poured oil on her head. They said she needed a spiritual bath. 5,000 naira for the soap. 2,000 naira for red oil of release. She paid. Nothing changed. A week later, another woman from her street said there was a pastor, a real man of God who sees things. They met under a canopy beside a filling station. The man wore white, no shoes. He stared at Gloria for a full minute and said, "I see something crawling under your bed at night." She gasped. He smiled. "It's not your fault. These things are inherited. But I can break it for a seed of 10,000 naira. She didn't have 10,000 naira, but she borrowed again. After all, what's 10,000 naira compared to freedom? That night, she was told to boil bitter leaf, urine, and salt and bathe with it under the moon. She did it. The next day, Miracle asked her, "Mommy, why are you pouring bitter water on yourself like punishment?" Gloria said, "You won't understand." But Miracle was watching, and children don't need to understand to start imitating. It became a cycle. Every Sunday, a new church. Every Tuesday, a vigil. Every Friday, a mountain. Every morning, salt in water. Every night, candles in cups tied with black thread. Some prophets blamed her children. Some blamed her placenta. Some blamed her own mother, but no one blamed her choices. The prayers became rituals, the rituals became rules, and the rules became her new gospel. She stopped taking Michael to the clinic. She said, "Prayer will heal you." She pulled Ada out of school, said, "Education is fine, but it won't remove curses." She stopped looking for work. She said, "God will provide." But God didn't send money, and the bills didn't disappear. So she started visiting the herbalists. He lived in a mud hut behind the forest. No signboard, only a black goat tied to a tree. He called himself Baba of the Spirits. He looked at Gloria and said, "You carry darkness in your blood. It's not your fault. Your destiny has been under attack since you were in the womb." He told her to bring a chicken, a new wrapper, and the names of all her children. She hesitated, but then she thought, what if this is the one that finally works? She did it. He slaughtered the chicken, poured the blood into a bowl, asked her to dip her hands and say, "Let no man touch me unless ordained by the ancestors." Miracle watched from behind a tree. She was only 8. Her mother didn't know, but she saw everything. She saw the feathers, the blood, the way the old man smiled, the way her mother trembled. After that, everything changed. Gloria didn't cook without adding cleansing salt. She didn't wear clothes without activating them with Psalm 35. She stopped calling Michael by name. She started calling him the doubter. And she started calling Miracle my prophetess. Miracle stopped playing with children. She started fasting, even when no one told her to. She began writing down her dreams. She started hearing voices. Ada, the oldest, followed silently. She loved the night prayers. She loved the candle lights, the power, the sense of purpose. But Michael stayed awake at night writing in a tattered exercise book. He copied lines from a borrowed science textbook. He saved coins in a tin, money he made helping a vulcanizer during holidays. He didn't trust prophets. He didn't trust alphabets written in chalk on the floor. He didn't trust the voice in his mother's head. But he still loved her. He still prayed for her quietly in his own way. But no one saw it. Because when you don't scream in church, they call you cold. When you don't fall during deliverance, they say you have pride. Michael didn't fall. He didn't scream. But inside, he was breaking. Because the woman who gave him life was slowly becoming a stranger. And the home he lived in no longer felt like one. Ada was the first to fully surrender. By the time she turned 14, her school uniform was buried deep in a trunk, untouched for months. She started wearing white wrappers and fasting every Thursday. She no longer smiled. She no longer asked questions. She walked slowly, spoke softly, and always seemed to be waiting for a voice only she could hear. One evening, Gloria returned from a night vigil and found Ada sitting in a basin of cold water, eyes closed. "What are you doing?" she asked. Ada whispered, "A spirit told me I must purify myself before sunrise." Gloria didn't argue. She only nodded and whispered, "You are growing in the spirit, my daughter." That night, Michael couldn't sleep. He had exams the next day, but he couldn't focus, not while Ada was rocking back and forth in prayer, shouting in tongues that sounded more like grief than glory. Meanwhile, Miracle was changing faster than anyone expected. She was only 9, but already people in the neighborhood called her Small Mommy. She didn't play with toys. She played with candles. She could recite entire psalms by heart. She claimed to see people's spiritual colors. She said, "That man is red. Red means danger. Aunt Nkechi is yellow. She has a soft heart." People started coming to her. One woman brought her a newborn baby and said, "Touch him. "Speak peace over him." Miracle touched the child's forehead and said, "No evil hand will hold you." The woman cried. She gave Gloria 2,000 naira. That was the beginning. Soon, Miracle had her own little plastic chair beside her mother at prayer meetings. People called her the gifted one. They said she had an ancient spirit. They dropped money in envelopes. They asked her for dreams. They asked her what colors she saw when they spoke. But no one asked her how she was doing. No one asked why a 10-year-old woke up screaming sometimes. No one asked why she refused to wear shoes, saying they blocked energy from the soil. Michael tried to talk to her once. "Miracle, do you really hear voices?" She looked him blankly. "They are voices, but I don't know if they are from God or from the things I saw with Mommy." That was the first and last time she admitted confusion. After that, she shut down. She became more intense, more withdrawn. She started keeping notebooks filled with symbols. Some were Bible verses, some were not. She called them revelations. Michael kept his head low. He knew there was no talking his sisters out of this world. He had tried. He had begged his mother to let Ada go back to school. She said, "Ada is walking the path of Deborah." He told her Miracle needed help. She said, "Miracle is anointed." So he stopped talking and started planning. He borrowed textbooks from a retired teacher 2 streets away. He swept the compound to earn small time on his bookshelf. He saved transport money by walking long distances just to read old newspapers. He learnt HTML from a torn manual someone threw out. He built fake login pages on paper with a pencil. He practiced public speaking in front of a cracked mirror. But his silence made them suspicious. One day, Gloria found a book under his mattress, How to Learn Anything, and tore it in half. "You think wisdom comes from books?" she shouted. "This is why your life is crawling." Michael stood frozen. Miracle stood in the doorway staring at him. Ada was humming a song that sounded like a hymn but had no words. He picked up the torn pages and left the room. That night, he wrote a note in his journal. "If I don't leave soon, I will disappear too. Not physically, but piece by piece, until nothing is left but fear." The house had changed. The smell of kerosene was replaced by camphor and burnt offerings. The walls were lined with scriptures scribbled in charcoal. There were no family photos, only scriptures and warnings and visions. Ada stopped menstruating. She said it was a sign that she had become holy. Gloria praised her. Miracle stopped eating meat. She said it was a message from her dreams. Gloria called her chosen. Michael stopped speaking. He buried his dreams deep because in that house, dreams were only valid if they came with oil, fire, and a prophet's confirmation. And his dream? To code, to study, to speak on a stage in front of people who respected him, not because he could shout amen louder than everyone else, but because he had built something real. The fracture was silent at first, but now it was undeniable. 1 family, 3 children, 3 paths. Ada, the echo. Miracle, the vessel. Michael, the outlier. And Gloria, she called it obedience, she called it anointing, she called it God moving in mysterious ways. But what it really was trauma, with a Bible in one hand and a bottle of anointing oil in the other. The first real crack came when Miracle disappeared. She was 14. It was a Friday morning. Gloria had left her to sweep the compound while she and Ada went to a night vigil on the outskirts of town. They returned the next morning to an empty room. No note, no shoes missing, just her small wooden cross and her most worn-out white gown. Gone. Gloria screamed. She ran from house to house, shouting Miracle's name. She accused neighbors of kidnapping. She blamed herself. She blamed Michael. You never liked her gift. You've always been jealous of her anointing. Michael didn't speak. He only looked at her and turned away. 3 days passed, then a call came from a number they didn't recognize. It was from a woman, a leader of a prayer camp 2 towns away. She said, "Your daughter is with us. She came on her own. She said God called her." They took public transport to go and fetch her. When they arrived, they saw her standing in front of a red and white tent, barefoot, eyes closed, arms lifted. She looked older, harder. Her hair was matted with oil. Her wrists were covered in red thread. "She has been fasting for 3 days," the woman said proudly. "She has a gift." Gloria wept, but not out of sadness, but out of pride. She knelt before Miracle and whispered, "My daughter, God is truly using you." Michael walked away. He sat beside a mango tree and waited. But Miracle didn't come home that night. She stayed in the camp. The leader said she was entering a deeper season. They said she had been chosen. They said she would be trained. Gloria agreed. Michael clenched his fists, not because he was angry at Miracle, but because no one saw the child anymore. They only saw the performance. And then came Ada's collapse. She was 19, still fully immersed in Gloria's world. One Sunday, after a special prophetic service, a young man approached her, handsome, well-dressed, tongue sharp like a blade dipped in honey. He said, "God said you are my wife." Ada blinked twice. She had been waiting years to hear those words. The man's name was Joshua. He said he was a traveling minister. He quoted scriptures. He told her about his dreams. He fasted with her, prayed with her, touched her shoulder during worship. Gloria was overjoyed. She said he is spirit-filled. He will cover you. For 3 months, he visited her, ate her food, told her she was a rare gem. Then, one day, he said he needed 50,000 naira, a crusade he was organizing. He said he had been tested by fire and God wanted to lift him. Ada didn't have the money, but she convinced Gloria to borrow from a small cooperative. They gave him the money. He disappeared. Phone off. Facebook deleted. No address. Ada sat in the dark for 2 days. She didn't eat, didn't bathe, didn't speak. On the 3rd night, she went into a trance and began laughing. Loud, uncontrolled, then crying, then screaming. Gloria thought it was demonic. She called Miracle from the prayer camp. They prayed over the phone. They sprinkled water. They anointed the floor. But nothing changed. Michael stepped in. "Mommy," he said gently, "she needs help. Real help. Not prayer, not rituals. Help." Gloria slapped him. "You mock the spirit." He didn't respond. He turned. He walked away. That night, he wrote a letter. It wasn't poetic. It wasn't bitter. It was short, direct. "I am grateful for life, but I need air. I need logic. I need to feel sane. I love you,
but I'm leaving." He left it under his pillow, took his small bag, took his saved-up money, and left before dawn. He traveled to Abuja, to a contact he had made online, a retired lecturer who ran a coding boot camp from his garage. He shared a room with 5 other boys, slept on a mat, ate once a day, and worked day and night. He built apps, ran tests, taught himself UI design, taught himself discipline. 2 years later, he got an internship at a fintech startup. They paid him 45,000 naira a month. He sent 10,000 naira home, quietly, anonymously, through a woman in the neighborhood who helped Gloria cook sometimes.
Back home, Gloria started to unravel. Ada was quiet now, like a candle that had burned for too long. She rarely spoke unless spoken to. She wore only black. She said the world had deceived her and she was waiting for the trumpet to sound. Miracle had become unreachable. She no longer answered Gloria's calls. She said the higher realms had instructed her to focus. She posted cryptic videos online, standing in rivers, eyes closed, hands raised. Spiritual awakening comes at a cost, she would say. But behind the eyes was a little girl still haunted by feathers and fire. Gloria sat alone most evenings. The oil bottles were still there, the white cloths, the red strings, the prayer books. But the voices, the visits, the revelations, they had all grown quiet. And in the silence, she had something she hadn't heard in years, her own thoughts. She looked around and realized she had no one left. Her son, gone. Her first daughter, broken. Her last daughter, consumed. And her own self, unskilled, unhealed, undone. 2 years turned into 4. Michael became a man. Not by age, he was still only 21, but by fire. He had worked his way from junior intern to junior developer. He now earned 120,000 naira a month. He rented a 1-room apartment in Lugbe. He ate once in the morning and once at night. He wore the same shoes for months, but he was free. And more than anything, he was sane. His mind was sharp. His thoughts were clear. His dreams were his own, not dictated by oil, candles, or vague prophecies. He had started building a small platform for teenagers interested in tech. He called it Light Code. He said, "If I had known how to code earlier, I wouldn't have stayed lost for so long." He wanted to teach, to give back, to help kids like him, quiet, thoughtful, hiding their dreams under the bed. But even as he built, a part of him kept looking back, to Okeolu, to the cracked walls, to the prayers screamed at midnight, to Eda's blank stare, to Miracle's strange laughter, and to the mother who once called him the doubter. It was a Sunday when he decided to return. He hadn't seen them in almost 5 years, but something inside him, not a voice, not a vision, just something human, said it was time. He arrived unannounced, wore a hoodie, carried a small backpack, heart pounding like thunder under a leaking roof. He knocked. It was Ada who opened the door. She didn't gasp, she didn't smile, she only blinked, slowly, like someone waking from a long dream. "Michael," she said, flat, no emotion. He stepped in. The room smelt of dust and dried camphor. Candles were on the floor, unlit. Scriptures still hung on the wall, but they had faded. The red thread tied to the window had snapped. Then Gloria emerged. She didn't speak. She just looked at him. Her eyes had lost their fire. Her skin was dull. Her shoulders drooped like wet cloth on a weak hanger. "You came," she said finally.
I did. There was silence, then tears. She didn't scream. She didn't kneel. She just folded herself into his arms like a child who had been cold for too long.
I thought I lost you, she whispered.
Michael didn't answer immediately. Then he said, "You didn't lose me. You gave me away." They sat on the floor. No one else spoke. Miracle wasn't there. She had reportedly gone to Ghana for a 40-day desert awakening. Ada sat in the corner, staring at a blank page in her notebook. Michael looked at Gloria and asked, "Mommy, do you still believe all of it?" She looked down. "I don't know. I was so tired, so desperate. I thought God was testing me. I thought the pain was holy." He nodded slowly. Then he said, "It wasn't God who broke us. It was fear. And when we fear for too long, we stop growing." She wept. For a long time. Not loudly, not theatrically, just soft broken sobs, the kind that come from knowing you can't go back. He reached into his bag and handed her a flyer. It was for a free adult women's training center, tailoring, phone repairs, soap making.
He said, "You don't need to be a prophet. You just need to be present. Learn something, do something for yourself." She looked at the flyer like it was written in Hebrew. Then she asked, "Is it too late?" Michael smiled, small, gentle. "It's only too late if you refuse to try." That night, they cooked rice together. Just plain white rice, no salt, no oil. But it tasted better than any of the sacrifice meals Gloria had made in the past. She asked him about his work. He showed her photos. Ada listened quietly. Before he left the next day, he gave her a phone. Not the latest, just one that worked. He saved his number in it, wrote "my son" as the contact name. And then he said, "Call me, even if it's just to say good night." As he boarded the bus back to Abuja, he looked out the window and watched her shrink in the distance. She stood beside Ada, still holding the flyer in her hand. And for the first time since he was a boy, he didn't feel anger or fear or shame. He just felt peace. Because sometimes peace isn't a reward. It's a decision. A decision to break the cycle, to forgive the wound, to rewrite the story. Gloria sat by the window watching the orange sky darken into evening. The wind carried the scent of rain and wet soil. And for the first time in years, she wasn't lighting candles or preparing salt water. She was threading a needle. It had been 3 months since Michael's visit. He still called every Saturday. Short, warm conversations filled with questions about her progress and quiet encouragements to keep going. Sometimes he sent her small videos, tutorials on tailoring, messages from other women like her who were starting over. She had joined the free training program he introduced, and though her hands were stiff at first, they began to loosen. She had sewn 3 pillowcases, a school uniform, and a blouse she now wore every Sunday. Not for spiritual power, but because it fit well and made her feel seen. Ada still lived with her. She hadn't gone back to church, but she hadn't fully returned to herself either. Most days, she sat quietly, eyes lost in thought. But Gloria had learned to stop preaching at her. She simply included her. When she cooked, she invited her in. When she prayed, she whispered. No more shouting, no more performatic fire. And slowly, Ada began responding. She even laughed once, a short, strange sound that Gloria hadn't heard since she was 12. It reminded her of who Ada used to be and who she might still become. Miracle remained distant. Occasionally, she would send strange voice notes, cryptic, spiritual, almost poetic. "Mommy, the moon is full, the rivers are speaking, I'll reach my mountain soon."
Gloria didn't know what they meant, but she no longer chased after her with oil and fire. She just replied with love. I hope you're safe. I'm here if you ever need to rest. In the quiet moments, Gloria often revisited the past, not to punish herself, but to understand. She saw now that leaving her husband had only been the first step. The real journey should have been inward, healing the wound he left, rebuilding the woman she once was, and learning how to stand without waiting for someone to lift her. But instead of healing, she had reached outward, to strangers with robes, to prophets with theatrics, to rituals wrapped in fear, and in doing so, she passed on her wounds like an inheritance. She realized she had taught her children more about spiritual fear than emotional strength. Instead of showing them how to solve problems, she had shown them how to surrender to illusions, and that, she admitted to herself, was her greatest regret. But regret alone cannot raise the dead. It cannot bring back the missed school years, or undo the fear in Michael's eyes, or return Adad's stolen innocence. What it can do, what it must do, is ignite change. Gloria began journaling. She wrote letters to her children, even the ones who didn't read them. She wrote prayers that didn't ask for favor or vengeance, just clarity. She started a WhatsApp group with other women from her tailoring class. They shared ideas, encouraged each other, and some even confessed the spiritual detours they had once taken. Together, they started dreaming again, not of altars and prophecies, but of business plans and market stalls.
One day, she sat with a young girl in the neighborhood who had just left an abusive boyfriend. The girl had asked her, should I just go to one of these strong prayer places and settle it spiritually? Gloria shook her head slowly. No, she said. You need to heal. You need to learn something. You need to build a life that doesn't depend on being rescued. The girl listened, and for the first time in a long time, Gloria felt like a mother again. Not every woman who escapes violence escapes her trauma. Sometimes she carries it like luggage, heavy, invisible, inherited. But healing is not passive. It doesn't fall from heaven like rain. It is a decision, a discipline, a journey. Gloria's story reminds us that pain must be processed, not performed. That faith without self-awareness becomes superstition. And that children, no matter how strong, can only rise so far before their roots pull them back down. If you're watching this and you're in pain, don't rush to the next pastor, the next mountain, the next miracle. Pause, breathe, learn, heal, build, because the most powerful deliverance is growth.